Everyone, thank you for joining. We'll wait just another moment or two to allow all of our attendees to be able to join us. Just as a reminder, you are in listen-only mode. Again, we are recording this webinar. Just wait another moment or two just to allow for all of our attendees to join. Welcome to this afternoon's panel discussion with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you so much for joining. Just wait another minute or two as we allow everyone to join our room. Hey, thank you so much. Hello and welcome to today's National Conversations, Race, Relationships, and Resources, Alpha Phi Alpha Men of Distinction webinar. I am your moderator for this conversation. My name is Tanya Gibson. I'm the Vice President of Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, also known as JEDI, and Human Resources here at Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. This year, we are celebrating the renewal of our 30-year partnership with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the first historically African-American fraternity. We are so proud of this continued partnership and glad that you've joined us to learn more about this partnership and hear from Alpha members who are also actively engaged with the mission of Big Brothers Big Sisters. We'll be joined by several of these Alpha Phi Alpha members in just a moment, and they've served in varying capacities with Big Brothers Big Sisters, from being bigs, current and former board members, and leaders within the Big Brothers Big Sisters family. First, I'd like to welcome each of you to this conversation and review a few housekeeping notes along the way. Please note that this webinar is in listen-only mode and is being recorded. For our Big Brothers Big Sisters attendees, the recording will be made available in the Learning Exchange. And for our Alpha Phi Alpha members in attendance, this recording will be made available and shared with you from your national headquarters team at Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We ask all attendees who are joining us for the live session to please use the Q&A box that is located at the bottom of your screen in the toolbar section. And if you have any questions, you can ask them anonymously by checking the anonymous box. We do have a moderator who will be able to assist you with any technical needs by asking any questions in our chat box. So again, please use the Q&A box if you have any questions for our panelists or for myself. And please use our chat box if you have any technical questions or anything that you don't want to have addressed as a question during the question and answer section of our webinar. Now that we've gotten all of those housekeeping notes out of the way, I would like to introduce to you our President and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, Artis Stevens, to share his opening remarks with all of you. Artis?
Thank you so much, Tanya. I really appreciate the introduction and appreciate all of your work. So I want to just give a shout out to Tanya Gibson, who is just doing an incredible job leading our JEDI focused work, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And I'm a big fan of these triple R's and what it gives us an opportunity to do and to bring so much insight and thoughtfulness to the incredible work that is happening across this network and with amazing partners. And speaking of amazing partners, right, it gives me so much pride, so much joy, just so much connection to see a beautiful marriage that's been so historical in our network, as well as so much meaning to my life personally, right? This is one of those calls where you join and you're like, it's the best of both worlds. You know, I sit here today as the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, and proud of this journey, proud of the 8 months that I've been on board and just everything that I'm seeing, the incredible spirit of this network, the power of the local professionals who are supporting young people all across this country. And we see you, we see the amazing work you're doing. We're proud of the work that you're doing, and we're doing everything that we can nationally to ensure that we're continuing to support that work today and for the future. And what's really critical to that work is having amazing partners who sharing the values of what we believe in, the value of the potential of every young person around this country, the value of creating equity for young people, the value of representation, the value of inclusivity, the value of what we believe in terms of putting young people first. I cannot tell you any organization that matches that value more than Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And why do I know that? Because I'm a member. I am a brother. I am connected in this belief in this movement of this organization. See, I walk this journey, and I'll tell you, and I'll share this just with you quickly, because I want us to really get to the main entree here. I'm only a quick appetizer. But I'll tell you, I walked this journey, and I think many of you know that I was the first in my family to go to college and graduate. And I just always remember my dad, because my dad was this man who believed that, hey, he's going to do everything that he could to ensure that I got every opportunity in this world. But he also was a man who knew, hey, here's what I can provide you, and maybe here's what I can't provide you. He knew, hey, I was a man who only got my 5th grade education. I had to leave and work so that I could provide for my family. But he also knew that he wanted to set a legacy for his son. So when I went to college, one of the first experiences that I had, because I came from a small town, I knew my community. My very first experience of seeing a group of Black men who were college educated, who were focused, who had this desire to help their communities, who had this passion to lift the campus, lift their broader community up, were these men, and they all had on these same colors, right? And I was like, who is this group when I came up to sort of do my orientation? And it was this group, and they had this Black and old gold going on. And it wasn't like a step show. It wasn't all this stuff that I know you started seeing in the media and all that kind of stuff. These brothers were doing service. They were kicking it down. And this was during my orientation, coming up to do a college visit. These brothers were on the yard doing service. And I saw them, and I was just sort of like, wow. And I'll never forget, because my dad made the visit. My mom and my dad made the visit with me. And I'll never forget, they came back because we were doing the meet and greet of a lot of different groups and organizations. And I'll never forget, both of them were over talking to the alphas. And they came back over it. And the first thing they said to me, they was like, I don't know anything about Black fraternities and sororities, but you got to be a part of that group, right? They said it to me immediately, and it always stuck with me. And I didn't know I was going to end up pledging Alpha at that time, but it was sort of a precursor for me, knowing that the people that I trusted most saw these men and saw what I ultimately ended up seeing in them. And that proved true. I came into this organization, Alpha Phi Alpha, and when I say it changed my life, it changed my entire trajectory in terms of going into college, building a brotherhood, building connection, and then using that in every step in every place of my life. This is not something that I graduated from college and it was gone. It has stayed with me. It is in my blood, and every single thing that I do, every single connection that I have, every decision that I make, I am on the phone, calling and consulting, and typically there's an alpha man somewhere in that circle. So I am proud of this organization, but I'm even more proud of what it means for the organization in which I lead right now, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, because we know the history. I've shared that in videos. I've shared it at national conference. You know it much more than I know it. You know the history that these two organizations have together, and they're intertwined with each other. We share so much in common. But the most important thing we can share in common today is how we walk our journey towards a future and ensuring that we empower every young person to graduate with a plan for their future and a mentor who impacts their lifetime. This is the power that we have here today. This is the opportunity that we have here today. And I am so proud that you're going to hear from some inspirational, incredible, insightful speakers who happen to be Big Brothers, Big Sisters connected, but also very focused and very determined alpha men as well. And you can't get any better than that. Now, I will say that as you listen and as you engage in this conversation, take a lot of notes, because what we hope that you get from this time is prescription, right? To hear how it's done, to hear things that of how we connect and create the types of partnerships and opportunities together. And hopefully it gives you prescription as you're trying to build these relationships in your local community. So to all the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, professionals and volunteers on the line, I hope that you're listening. I hope that you connect. I hope that this is an opportunity for you to feel free to reach out to Alpha, fraternities, the universities in your campus or your cities and your towns, and for Alpha Brothers who are listening. Hope that this inspires you to engage with your local Big Brothers, Big Sisters agency. Connect as a volunteer, connect as a donor, inquire about boards, inquire about staff, be engaged. This is our opportunity to work and to build something together. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity. I want to say to all of the Big Brothers Big Sisters family out there, we're bigger together, as you know, with partners like Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And I want to say to all the frat out there, 06, my brothers, let's do this. All right, Tanya, back over to you.
I knew I wasn't going to get you in your opening remarks to not shout out 06. So we'll just do Zeta Phi Beta really quick because we've got to do it. Know that I'm part of this Divine Nine family. And thank you so much, Artis. We are so inspired by everything that you have to share. And we're so thankful that you're leading this charge. And so we've heard from one Alpha brother already. But at this time, I'm also going to welcome in a special message from our General President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Dr. Willis L. Lanzer III. So please listen in.
Greetings. I'm Dr. Willis L. Lanzer III, General President of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And today it is with great pleasure that I announce the formation of an agreement between Big Brothers Big Sisters of America and Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. This partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters will allow Alpha Phi Alpha members to serve as mentors, to raise funding to advance the efforts of both institutions, to enroll others from our expanding spheres of influence and stakeholders, to seek career opportunities in Big Brothers Big Sisters, to provide board-level leadership throughout the Big Brothers Big Sisters network, and to leverage our collective power to build a true movement of change for children, as well as many other initiative-based goals in alignment with our partnership. I extend a hearty congratulations and thank you to Mr. Artis Stevens, President and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, as well as to the entire organization on establishing this worthy partnership with Alpha. Lastly, I want to congratulate the men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity for making partnerships like this possible through your service. Truly, because of your belief in our mission as a fraternity, we are making the difference in the lives of young people. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Lanzer, for those inspiring words. And so we're going to get, as Artis said, to the entree of this conversation. And so at this time, I'm going to welcome all of my Alpha panelists to please join us. This, of course, is a partnership and can't be done without the service of many of these fine gentlemen. I could have brought many more to the table, but these are just a few of the Alpha men who have helped to guide this partnership along, helped to support it, and support the mission of Big Brothers Big Sisters in varying capacities. And so I cannot probably do as much justice to introducing all of your accolades and all of the contributions that you've made to ensure that this partnership continues. But I do welcome Dale Long, Lowell Perry, and Raymond Long as our panelists to our conversation. And so we're family. So I welcome each of you to be able to share your thoughts as I ask some questions of you. As a reminder to our attendees who are listening in with us live, don't forget to ask those questions, put those into the Q&A box for us now. And as you hear our gentlemen, as they share a little bit more, as Artis mentioned, around our partnership, their engagement with our organization, please engage with us because we're family. We want to be able to ask those questions and learn more about this partnership. And so with that, I'm going to welcome Dale Long first for a question to you, Brother Dale. So I'm going to brag on you a little bit, Dale, that you have been part of this mission for so long. And what I'll say is for almost 50 years, you have been actively engaged with the mission of Big Brothers Big Sisters in a variety of capacities and continue to do so and working with us in this partnership, as well as being a 50-year member, correct, Dale? This year in celebration, a 50-year member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So you have a wealth of knowledge. So I'm going to jump right into my question for you, Dale, because with so much knowledge, so much history with both organizations, and just a staunch advocate for mentoring, tell our audience for us why mentoring matters, and specifically why this renewed partnership with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is so important for both organizations to continue this movement of mentoring young people.
Well, thank you, Tanya. And it's an honor for me to have the opportunity to visit with Big Brothers Big Sisters affiliate staff members from around the country, as well as my esteemed brothers all over the land. You know, it's important to note that my brothers should know in particular that my first knowledge of Big Brothers Big Sisters came about in one of my first meetings as a newly initiated Alpha man in 1971 in Texas Southern. At the outset, please know that as Alpha men, we are called to make a difference. We're on a mission. Brothers, too many African-American boys as well as girls are at risk of dropping out of school, getting involved with gangs and drugs and teen pregnancy, losing their way. They're on their way to a path of making bad choices, destructive, risky behavior, and incarceration instead of education. Brothers, mentors can be there to help keep them on the right path or inspire them to get back on it. There are studies that show with a mentor in their lives, they're less likely than their peers to start engaging in negative, potentially devastating activities. Now, brothers, don't miss this. There are 30,000 young men that look like us, or most of us, around the country who need mentors today. So the call to action is for you to take the initiative to find your local Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies. If you have trouble doing that, call me and I'll be glad to help you. But offer yourselves to become big brothers in particular. There are a lot of other opportunities, but we need Alpha men to be there for our young people. You know, and y'all have heard me all over the country for years, 30 years talking about this. And I've often said in order to be men, our young boys have to see men. And it's just as simple as that. So we all know that in Proverbs, we've read that iron sharpens iron. So brothers, I want you all to be out there and be there for young people, because, you know, sometimes I jokingly tell folk that I got a selfish reason for being a big brothers, because I have two beautiful daughters and they got to have somebody to marry. Thank you, Tanya.
I knew you'd sneak it in, Dale, but I love it. And in all sincerity and all seriousness, I think your message and call to action is so important. So I'm going to echo it and amplify it. And Lowell, I'd love for you to chime in, because I know you and I have talked about this a lot in discussing Big Brothers Big Sisters and our waiting list. And you mentioned it, Dale. So I just want to repeat it for our Alpha members, our Big Brothers Big Sisters family. We already know this to be true, that there are young people all across this country. 30,000 is our estimate, right? Waiting. And some of them wait for a long time to be matched with a mentor that can impart that knowledge, ignite that potential that it exists in all of our young people. And we're trying to get that call to action out to all of our constituents, but specifically through this partnership. That's a part of the partnership, right, Dale? That we're looking for our men, specifically our Alpha men, to impart their knowledge, maybe as a big. You're not ready as a big board member. We love to have board members and be able to share perspective and knowledge. And Lola, I know we've talked about this, maybe it's both, right? And your experiences, Lowell, being a part of this organization, Alpha Phi Alpha, being a big board member, you have kind of all of the perspectives, multidimensional in terms of what it takes, what that call to action really means. So I'd love for you to be able to share with us a little bit of who you are, Lowell, for our folks who may not already know, and share with us about why the capacity of serving, whether it be a board member, as a big, no matter where you are in your life, why that passion needs to be ignited for our Alpha men tonight. Why is that so important that we get that point across, Lowell?
Well, thank you, Tanya. Greetings, everyone. All my brothers of the ice cold, black and gold, and to those of my old colleagues that might still be around, in Big Brothers Big Sisters land. It's a pleasure to be here today. Let me just, I'll echo what Brother Long said so eloquently in terms of the need. And it really stands out to me, having been involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters, to put some things in perspective here. You're saying 30,000. That's almost double what it was when I left over 8 years ago. So that means that we have a real serious problem that we have to deal with. And especially, as Dale said, most of the people on that list look like us that you're watching on this call here today. But, I think we really have to take a systemic approach to this. Yes, we need bigs. Not everybody can be like Brother Long and have 7, 8 little brothers over the years and all. It's not an easy gig being a big brother. I tell you, and I understand that. But Brother Lonzer said it well in terms of our general president, in terms of being involved at the board of directors level. And I think that's extraordinarily important and a real missed opportunity because, as our agencies around the country seek to develop a more robust Jedi culture, if you will, diversifying those boards and leadership are extremely important, because what that does is it tells the community that they are welcome under the tent and that there are more things that brothers can do. Dale will have to resurrect the old gold paper that we did. You may have already shared that with Brother Stevens, and congratulations to him in doing what he's doing. That was certainly good news to all of us out here. But, if we're looking at it that way, if we're looking at it, because we can't recruit our way to 30,000 mentors. That's just part of it. We've got to have a long game. And that's where, board leadership, working with the staffs, both entities, both Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies, and to my brothers out there in chapters across the country, you have to be intentional about making this partnership work. It would be a doggone shame if we waste the 30 years that have gone into and have been invested in this partnership. It truly is a special one. And so I encourage you to be aggressive. I encourage all of us here, both Big Brothers Big Sisters, as well as Alpha Phi Alpha, to hold one another accountable. And that means that, as the saying goes, what gets measured gets done. So we need to keep track of how we're doing on all of those things in terms of, who's serving on boards and who's serving as a big. Don't forget that men of color have influence and affluence. And so those of you agency leaders out there looking for new sources of revenue and all, you might be missing out in your local marketplaces. So those are all things that you can look at. And, I'm back and part of this call because I believe in the mission. I believe in the power of mentoring. And the last thing I'll say to that, Tanya, is I would encourage this group as we continue this dialogue, as we continue this conversation and this quest to eliminate 30,000 young boys off of this waiting list, that we look very carefully at some opportunities for funding a program to do just that. And that was something that we were trying to do right around the time that I left and was gaining some traction. And there's plenty of it out there right now. In fact, I would submit that with the current American Rescue Plan Act, there might be some opportunities to do something pretty creative around this, because it would touch a lot of the buckets that the current administration has said are of interest to them. So let's all think outside of the box. Let's be intentional about it and approach each other with the due respect and humility and seriousness that this moment calls for. So thank you for having me on, and apologize for the long answer to that, but those of my old colleagues know that you put a mic in my hand, you might not get it back.
No worries, Lil. No apologies. We're family, right? And so I know that folks are probably asking themselves that question, or maybe you're using that Q&A box to ask some of those questions. Question and answers are coming up shortly. So if you want to know those answers, you have the experts right here. So make sure you use that Q&A box. And Lowell, I think what you said is a perfect segue for us to welcome in our other brother Long, Raymond Long, to the conversation. Because what you mentioned, two things, is being intentional, right? And humility. And so our Jedi focused work that we do every day is helping to impart that awareness around humility, approach, and intentionality. And when you have folks like Raymond Long here, who I'm going to welcome in, Raymond, thank you, who have sat in that similar position that you mentioned, Lowell, about board member, right, Raymond? And we'll have you share your story with our attendees in a moment. And then once you're engaged as a board member, okay, now I want to understand more about this mission. How can I impart it? Being actively involved as a leader of the organization and a big. And so Raymond, I think what you heard Lowell share is probably very similar to maybe your impact and how you got started and engaged with Big Brothers Big Sisters. So I'd love for you to share with our attendees a little bit about who you are and your story. And then I will follow up with my question for you.
Absolutely, Tanya. Thank you for the opportunity this evening. And so, here in Central Arkansas, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Arkansas, our agency has been here for about 53 years. And so I'm proud to kind of announce and tell all the brothers and people who are present that I'm the first African American and the youngest ever to serve in this position. But that doesn't happen without the power of mentorship. I reflect back on my life. I remember when my dad was struggling with crack. I remember when my mom was living on disability. I remember when DHS was trying to remove me from the home. And when I was about 20 or 21, I started to wonder, how did I make it out? I started to do research between the haves and the have-nots. And what I found was it was youth development. And when I dug deeper and I started to search for rag to riches stories, then I found that it was mentorship. So then I looked at my personal situation, and it seems like as I think about everything that I was going through, for me, even before I was thinking about being an alpha man, there was an alpha man on my left, there was an alpha man on my right, and there was an alpha man behind me who always had my back in some unofficial capacity. But it was truly mentorship. Alpha men have influenced every area of my life, professionally, socially, physically. When it comes to physical fitness, it was an alpha man, Gerald Williams, who gave me my first financial book, Dave Ramsey, The Total Money Makeover, that was able to change my life from a financial literacy standpoint. And so my path started by wanting to make a difference. I wanted to create more stories like mine. And so Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Arkansas, they initially approached me to be on the board. They wanted to solve a problem. The problem they wanted to solve was they needed more Black men to mentor. They wanted credibility in the Black community. But sadly to say, they approached me before I was an alpha man. We have a thriving chapter in my area, but for some reason there was a disconnect between my chapter and our agency. And although I am grateful for the opportunity, what I do know is alpha men are some of the greatest men around. Alpha men are the most connected, the most professional. They have the most insight. They have the most credibility. They're the most professional. And so alpha men, we have to step up and help agencies. Now, as a CEO of an agency, there's another dilemma. Our counterparts, white men, are lining up by the bundles wanting to serve our kids. There isn't a day doesn't go by where 4 or 5 white men come up and say, you know what, I want to mentor. And it puts me in a really, really, really particular position because I want Black men to do it. I want Black men to show up, but for some reason, we're not showing up. And so I can't deny kids access to mentors, right? Because white men can help, but they can't help the way a Black man can help, especially an alpha man. There's also another dilemma that I run into. I see a lot of alpha men kind of doing their own thing with mentoring programs, mentoring organizations here, mentor affiliations here, personal mentoring programs here. why do that alone? Why go at it alone? There's strength in numbers. Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, the top premier mentoring organization in the world. We have child safety. We have the best match report. We have the best program standards. We can go further if we go together. Last but not least, when you talk about JEDI and the impact that Big Brothers Big Sister agencies want to make in their local areas, to have an alpha man president, it's meaning that the board, who primarily usually made up of non-black individuals, they get a new perspective. They get new connections. Alpha men can advocate and speak up on behalf of the boys and men we want to serve. And so that's my call to action, is we have to take this serious. We have to step up. And we have to take it personal. We have to show up like never before and mentor and ignite the potential and promise of our youth. Thanks for your time, Doug.
Raymond, thank you very much. I didn't know what to expect, sir, but you've exceeded all expectations. I've heard your story. But I am seeing in our chat a lot of folks chiming in and saying thank you for those words. So before we jump into the questions and answers, so make sure you're putting your questions in. I just want to invite Dale and Lowell, if you have any other items to add after hearing more about Raymond and some of what he shared.
I just wanted to thank you for that, Brother Long, too. I'm going to call you. But thank you for sharing that. And guess what? That's not old. That same story was being told when I was there, and that has to change. And it doesn't mean that you're talking about going and replacing every white person on your board and that kind of thing. I mean, that's not the idea. And, the whole thing about trying to find more men of color to mentor young boys, that was something we struggled with in Middle Tennessee when I was there. And I used to have this conversation with some of my white board members who were mentoring young black boys, and it was like, hey, we appreciate you, and you can do a good job. However, that young man might love you, might benefit from you, but he can never actually be you. And so that's why it's so important, when Dale always, would admonish everyone that, boys have to see men to be men. It helps if they see men that look like them, to inspire them maybe to greater things at the end of the day. Yes, we got to take mentors where we can find them. I mean, my number one mentor and who I learned life lessons from to begin with happens to have been named Lowell Perry, my dad. And he was an alpha, and his dad was an alpha, so I'm third generation. But he mentored me, my younger brother Scott, who's general manager with the New York Knicks, and my younger sister Meredith. And one of the things that he taught us at an early age, one of his favorite sayings was, you make a living by what you do, but you make a life by what you give. And that's what we're talking about here on this panel today, I think, across the board here, is how can you give of your time, your talent, and or treasure to a worthy cause, one that's been around, is time-tested, and can make a difference. Because guess what? If we don't, there are consequences to inaction. And we don't have enough time to talk about that today. That might be the topic for another call, Tanya.
All right, Lowell, and that might be a sneak peek. Maybe we'll have to do part 2. I do see there are a couple questions coming through our Q&A box, and we want to make sure that we answer these questions. Some of them I think we can get to, so I will open it up to allow us to answer some questions. So I'm going to ask our moderator who's helping us in our background, Claire, if you can help us out with our first question.
Absolutely. Okay, so first question is, how is this partnership being communicated to local Alpha chapters, alumni, and university?
I love that question. I'll actually take that question, Claire, and to the attendee who asked, wonderful, because I was going to share this a little bit later, so it will be reiterated. So we are part of our partnership, our responsibility and my role alongside the national headquarters of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity is to continue to steward this relationship. So all the attendees who registered for this event and subsequent anyone who didn't register as part of Big Brothers Big Sisters will gain access to a full toolkit that we are actually working on right now to help build out some key specific strategies of how you can get connected. Inclusive to that, our Alpha Phi Alpha members will also be contacted by their national headquarters after this webinar recording is sent to them with a survey link, so we can engage on both avenues to gain some insights and information about who is currently active as an Alpha member and engaged with Big Brothers Big Sisters, either as a volunteer or a board member. And then for our Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies, we will have some specific key targeted information. So if you are not currently connected with a local Alpha chapter in your area, we'll be able to help make that organic connection, very similar to what Lowell said, to make sure that we continue this partnership and we're very intentional. So we at the national office, in partnership with the national headquarters of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, are going to be sharing a toolkit, and a couple more things will be coming your way. So stay tuned in your inboxes. We've got some goodies on the way for all of our attendees from Alpha and Big Brothers Big Sisters.
You know, Tanya, may I add to that?
Yes.
You know, I get questions all the time about the fraternity, and some people say, well, I just thought that was something you did in college. In the African American culture and tradition, you have men and women who are more involved in fraternity and sorority as graduate members than they do as undergraduates. So we are all over the country and all over international at this point. If you go to any church in your city and say, I know you have at least one Alpha man, you'll be able to find us.
You might be a pastor.
Might be. I'm contacted daily by affiliates all over the country trying to ask me to connect with them, the Alphas in their area. Now, you know, when I was at Texas Southern, had school-based mentoring been available to me then, I would have gladly done it. Just walk across the street to the local high school or middle school, but it wasn't available. So I had to wait until I was out of school. I was working for NASA, and a guy invited me to join at that point. But I realized, just like Laura said, you know, my dad was my mentor, and there were people in my community that if my dad was not watching me, they would make sure that he knew what was going on when he wasn't watching. And there were some consequences, and it wasn't the police. So I echo what Laura said and many others. If we don't do this now, then the consequences may not be such a good thing. You know, one of my little brothers in particular had a whole lot of questions about Trayvon Martin and about police shootings. And we talked about sagging pants and watching out who you hang out with and being at the wrong place at the wrong time. But on the flip side of that, we're learning how to tie ties, shine shoes, dress for success, go to a restaurant and order from a menu instead of a number 2 and a pepper. Our kids need to understand it so they'll be well prepared. Basic grooming, clean nails, all of that, so important. And Alpha men have the wherewithal to do that. We have the connections. And I tell my littles all the time, if you need help with your homework and I don't know exactly how to do it, I bet you I got a frat brother that knows. And just think about this one last issue. There are kids in Dallas that can see the beautiful skyline from their front porch, but they've never been in any one of those buildings. Imagine the impact when I take a kid to a frat brother's office on the 32nd floor, one of those skyscrapers, and tell that young man, you could be sitting in this office 10, 15 years from now if you just apply yourself. Imagine the impact when somebody actually takes them to a college campus and say, there's life after high school. Imagine that we've got several brothers in Dallas who are on the TV sets. They do the news and the sports and stuff. I've taken my littles to their TV studios and they've sat in the seats where these brothers sit just to get a feel as to what it's like. And so we have the wherewithal. We have everything you need to make this all happen. But when we nurture these kids, we are nurturing the next generation of college men and perhaps even the next generation of Alpha men. So again, the call to action is to do this. Do it today, because many of our kids don't have time for us to continue to think about it. Thank you, Tanya.
Hey, Joe, we have questions pouring in, so I'm going to try to get to as many as possible with Claire. So Claire, can you help us out with our next question?
Absolutely. This is going to sort of piggyback off of what Dale Long just said, which was, what are some ways to get men to move from contemplation to committing to mentoring a young man? So what are your thoughts on pushing them to make a commitment?
Well, one of the things that you probably want to do is to get on the agenda of the local Alpha Phi Alpha chapter and do a presentation to them. You can't make it long, maybe 15 minutes at the most. What might help sometimes is to bring a mom who's been in the program for a while, or even the little himself, and say, man, I need somebody there for me. But you can use some creative ways, and we can talk offline and I can coach you through that. But any way I can help, I'm available to do that. But you want to get in front of them at least twice a year. And again, you might want to bring examples, a mom or a grandmother and the little themselves, so they can come and talk about how much important it would be if one of them was in his life.
Can I just add to that? I think the other piece too is, as agencies, one of the things, those of you that are out there raising money, you know that it's important to touch people as many times as you can, and early in the game, not necessarily ask them for anything. So when you're having different kinds of events, especially where stories are being shared and testimonies are being given, invite folks to come out, invite people to volunteer, just so that they can be touched by the organization and have a feel for what this whole Big Brothers Big Sisters thing is all about. And then that leads to perhaps a deeper commitment. And then if you put a little plant in there, like an alpha brother or two that might already be a big that happens to be at that event and can nudge them, there you go.
And Tanya, if you don't mind, I'll add to that as well. It's important to find a local champion in the local alpha chapter in your area. You'll be surprised what here. It doesn't always have to be the person with a title, but just a leader, someone that's passionate about the work and the impact that they can make on an organization. When I was on the board, right, had just joined the alumni chapter, the chapter here actually rallied around and actually signed up to be mentors. We were able to get 5 to 10 brothers relatively quickly without any real outreach efforts. And then most recently, we assigned a different champion here in Central Arkansas, the Paulino chapter, and we were able to raise over $1,500 in about a week for our Bowl for Kids' Sake fundraiser that's happening late in October. So find that local champion, and then also you really have to be intentional about your outreach efforts. Even with the agency that I've just started leading, when I really took a step back and looked at the outreach efforts, it was really limited in scope because we have been doing the same thing over and over and over again. Nothing different, no new influencers, no new messages. But we have some help now at the national level because I believe Brother Stevens has been intentional, right, about recruiting Black men. And so leverage some of the material that's in the marketing folder. It's great content that will appeal to Alpha Brothers.
And I'll keep that going with you, Raymond. You'll probably be able to answer this one. What are the qualities, credentials Big Brothers Big Sisters is looking for in respect to board members?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. That's a hard one to answer. And so typically you always hear the ability, you need board members with the ability to fundraise. But that's kind of shifting with the initiative, with the initiative to be more inclusive on boards. And so you're just looking for someone that's willing. There's a certain level of education that you have to run an organization. You have to remember you're helping running an organization. Number 2, we just need you to be able to connect and network and be able to kind of talk across the aisle. So that's what I'm looking for, someone that has a voice and someone that's passionate about the mission and has the education, the experience to help the board of directors in a unique way. We don't need you to be everybody else. We need you to be an alpha man, right? And get us access to those connections and those mentors, and that peer-to-peer fundraising that we can tap into with having that liaison on the board.
Great. Next question. How do you compete with other programs also recruiting Black male mentors that promise less of a time commitment?
Well, you know, I mean, that kind of goes to what Raymond was just talking about in terms of passion. And, you know, that's who I always wanted on my board. Number one, that they were passionate about the mission. They weren't just trying to stuff a resume by having some involvement. And, you know, you just have to talk about what you bring to the table. You know, you never bash the competition. That's a losing strategy, anybody that's in sales. But if you talk about the pedigree, the history, you talk about the results that are verifiable that happen as a result of involvement with Big Brothers Big Sisters. And when you start kicking those percentages that were out there, I remember when we were doing some advocacy work, and the thing that stuck with many of the legislators that I spoke to involved, you know, what we were stemming off and how performance in school was being enhanced, and you know, the whole idea behind the Amachi program and keeping people out of the criminal justice system, and then quantifying that with the cost of doing nothing. How much will it cost you if you don't get involved as a big brother? And you know, I don't know what figure y'all are using now. I mean, we used to round it off to $1,000 a year to support a match. You know, it's a good round figure. But when you put that out in front of somebody compared to, you know, and it varies from community to community, but on average $88,000 to incarcerate a juvenile, that made a pretty easy thing. And I don't think there are many other organizations that are out there that keep that kind of data and that's verifiable data that you can put in front of people. And that's what, you know, in today's world, folks listen to numbers. And so if you can put the numbers in front of them and let them know what's in it for them by doing it, what's in it for the community, that's a compelling argument.
You know, one of the things that you might want to consider, one of the things that you might want to consider is visiting with campuses and talking to kids while they're undergraduates, and just say, hey, I know you're tied up with school and jobs and sports and band and all of that, but please consider Big Brothers Big Sisters the minute you're out of school and found a job and all of that. That's how I got involved. And I hate to be personal about it, but I knew about it and it was on my mind the minute I went to work and said, you know, now I have the resources to do that. And lo and behold, the first day on the job, a guy came to me and said, hey, Dale, I'm ready to sign you up. And I've had a great time doing it ever since. So once you recruit 5 or 6 guys in one chapter, then give them the goal to duplicate themselves, because the best marketing material you have are those who are already volunteering.
Yeah.
So you give them the mandate to look, I got 10 of you signed up this time. Can we make it 20 in 6 months? Mm-hmm. And continue to grow and grow and grow, and then encourage the brothers that are already involved to talk it up at their chapter meetings. Here in Dallas, we have a session called Good of the Day. And I always stand up and talk about the progress that I'm making with my little, as do many of the other brothers. So the more you talk about it and the more you put positive examples in front of those who are just thinking about it, the easier it is to recruit them.
Yeah. Now, hey, Dale, I agree with you. That's how I got exposed to Big Brothers Big Sisters. When I was an undergrad at Yale, in the Black Cultural Center, we used to call it the Afro-American Cultural Center of the House, there was a notice there that they were looking for big brothers And here I was at a very much predominantly white university, elitist establishment, and in the middle of New Haven, Connecticut, which was around the campus predominantly black, and the only other black faces that I saw frequently were working in the dining hall or, as laborers. I wanted to do something in the community to give back. And so, I volunteered. And so you're absolutely right. This new generation, is my understanding, and Tanya, you probably can speak to it better than I can on that, are very predisposed to causes and being involved hands-on. So you're missing an opportunity if you aren't reaching out to some of these kids, I think.
Absolutely. We have a slew of other questions. We want to make sure that we get to them, and we're going to try to keep on time here. So Claire, what's our next question?
Okay, this is along the lines of recruitment. So I am a white female CEO with a predominantly white team and board of directors in a largely white community. We genuinely want to engage alpha members at our local university. We have a number of black men requesting black mentors. We really want to place them, and we have openings in our board. We don't want to come off as though we're trying to fill a quota. We recognize we have work to do on Jedi. What's the best way for us to intentionally and respectfully approach your members so that they know we are open to their participation?
I'll start with this one. So your local chapter, and this is one of the ideas that I'll implement here in Central Arkansas. There's only a certain number of alpha men. We don't let everybody in, right? So we're limited on our availability. However, we know other good men, right, who are not alphas, and so I think a part of the partnership should be helping recruit other black men, and it's something you should quantify, right? Something that you should have your local chapter take personal. That's the absolutely first step I would take in your effort to recruit more black men.
And just to add on to what Raymond was saying there, Brother Long, there, just like if you're out trying to recruit high net worth individuals to your board of directors, you don't bring them on one at a time, and because then that does maybe send a message, and that individual might feel like they're being, they're box checking. And so finding that other quality individual, like Brother Long just was saying, to potentially go along with a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, so that there is some, especially if you're basically all white right now, that would probably be helpful and make them feel more comfortable, because you don't want people to get on the board and then decide, nah, this isn't really what I want to do, and then all of a sudden they're rolling off and you have somebody out there bad-mouthing you.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. How do you break through the stigma around men spending quality time with young men?
Well, the numbers are out there, and you must impress upon them the predicament Black kids find themselves in today, as we've said so many times today. You got to pull at the heartstring. You might want them to understand that there are not many resources that's going to be available to this kid if we don't step up. I tell folk all the time, if we don't do it, the police will. And so it has to become an emotional thing. I would utilize people who are already volunteers. If you have African Americans that's out there, take them with you when you do the presentation to the Alpha Phi Alpha chapter. Let them provide their own testimony. Have them to provide to the prospective volunteers that you can do this, but you got to put away some quality time to make it happen. I figured out a way to, in some cases, to have my little brother almost be a part of my family. He was over at the house all the time. My girls knew him. They thought for a little while that he was their real brother. But there was a closeness that was established in all of my matches, and it'll just find its way into fitting in place once you establish that. But yeah, men will do it. but you got to keep after them. You got to keep those positive examples in front of them.
Right, great. Okay. Another question. Most fraternities have their own mentoring program. How can we convince them to volunteer with BBBS?
Well, look, you can remind members of Omega Psi Phi. By the way, their history book was written by an Alpha man, Kappa Alpha Psi, that they used to be part of this partnership. I mean, Dale, back in the day when we formed an African American task force, we had the executive directors and general presidents of Kappa Alpha Psi, Alpha Phi Alpha, and members of Omega Psi Phi attending our meetings on a regular basis. And so we tried to do this as a group. We presented to the Divine Nine and all. So I would remind people about the fact that the need is there. And there's always been kind of a healthy competition between the organizations. And so that might be a way to induce some folks. But I would recommend that as we continue to make this more robust and the example, as we're first of all, servants of all, then I would look at maybe resurrecting some of those relationships and bringing some of the other ones there that they used to be at the table.
And we're actually close to time. So I know we have a few other questions for our folks. And this has been in such an engaging conversation that I want to make sure that we're conscious of time, and we will be able to answer your questions. So if you asked a question that we didn't get the opportunity to hear from our panelists on, don't worry, we will make sure that we respond to you. There was one question that I kind of want to use as our closing as we end this conversation. First and foremost, obviously, thank you to all of our panelists, Dale Long, Lowell Perry, Raymond Long, and of course, I cannot forget our fearless leaders, Artis Stevens, as well as Dr. Lonzer, who both welcomed us with their opening remarks. And I just want to remind all of our attendees that, again, this is a recorded webinar that will be made available through the Learning Exchange for our Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies and for all of our Alpha men through the national headquarters of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And so a question that came through, just as a reminder for all of us, is that we have been talking a lot about how can Alpha Phi Alpha members get engaged, what can Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies do, and I just want to remind all of our attendees that it's not a one-sided partnership. So the national headquarters of Alpha Phi Alpha Partnership, of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, will be reaching out to their members with some additional survey information and some insights so that we can make sure that we have all of the information to help assist our agencies as you start working through some of the suggestions that our gentlemen have shared tonight. And so the call to action is not just for our Big Brothers Big Sister agency members, it's also a call to action for our Alpha Phi Alpha members to be able to get engaged, and we will help you. This is a partnership we will continue to steward. So as I think Dale Long mentioned earlier on in the conversation, reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly and I can help you connect with your local partnership. And similarly, for our Alpha members who are either listening in live or are listening to the recording, I know you know how to reach out to these gentlemen here, whether it be Dale or Lowell or any of your other Alpha members who are part of the national team at Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Stay tuned because we will have some more information and insights for all of you. So make sure you check your emails because we will be connecting with all of you to answer your questions that we didn't get to this evening, as well as to be able to share with you those strategies and how you can connect with either the national office of Big Brothers Big Sisters of America or the team at the national headquarters of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I want to thank again all of my esteemed panelists. This was insightful, engaging, interactive, and informative. And I want to encourage all of you this evening to ensure that you stay tuned, check your inboxes, be engaged, be excited, share this message with everyone that you know, and connect with us. Don't forget. So if you need any information, you can reach out to the national office and I will make sure that I get that information out in the Learning Exchange. And again, to Raymond, Lowell, and Dale, and Claire here at the national office, and Artis, thank you all for your time and your engagement. Be safe and be well, everyone.
Thank you, Tanya.
Care.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
six.
you. 06.
Right.
Take care. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Yeah, mhm.